Parties cannot remain static in this changing world of technological revolution. Values, principles, and ideologies may not change, but the approach to modern politics must change. There is therefore the need to change along where necessary with the changing times. There must be constant education of members on policies and programs of the government in order to hold the government accountable. Looking at the best practices out there, political parties must embrace democracy at the grassroots level by encouraging reforms in their constitution to pave way for multi-party competition at the local government levels. It must also be captured boldly in the constitution of the political parties through amendments and reforms that certain positions must be held by the youth, women, and persons with disabilities, PWDs. Parties must take interest in their membership. This is because it is membership that keeps parties alive. How many members do you have in your various parties? You must continue to expand the membership base, because without the members, the parties will not exist. Hence, the key technological reforms have been introduced to increase the membership base as well as generate revenue. WIDOA must uphold discipline at all levels, where members are kept in line to respect and abide by the rules of the country and the party. Today we were supposed to start at 9 a.m., but I could see WIDOA members arriving at 9:30. We are not disciplined. It's not good enough. We have to change our lives and be a disciplined youth. Regularly, political parties must take a look at their own constitutions. Where there is the need to change certain provisions, it must be done. Parties must continue to embrace reforms for the good of its members. Center-right parties must develop good manifestos. Manifestos that you are going to present to the electorate to capture their votes must be good ones, and the youth must actively participate in the preparation of manifestos and its execution in government. International network of center-right political parties provide an avenue between parties to cross-fertilize ideas with colleagues on the continent and globally as a way of staying relevant and keeping true to our ideals and philosophy. And that is what is happening here right now in Kampala, where WIDOA members from, I'm told, 19 different countries in Africa have come to cross-fertilize ideas and share ideas. And let me use this opportunity to say kudos to Konrad Adenauer and WIDOA and FDC and what's the name of the other party? What? DP Kenya for making this DP Uganda. Sorry, thank you, DP Uganda for making this conference possible. So, international network of center-right political parties is important for us to cross-fertilize ideas with colleagues. On the international front, the NPP is part of the global center-right political family. The party is a member of the Munich-based International Democratic Union, is a member of the Democratic Union of Africa, and a member of the Young Democrats Union of Africa, WIDOA. WIDOA members must strive for the following in their respective political parties: internal discipline, training. Training is important. That is consolidation of electoral capacity and ideological institute. And internal communication. How do you communicate amongst yourself in your own party? External communication through the media, and these days social media, is also important. Let the people, the voters, know about what your party and center-right means to the larger public. A regular visits to the rank and file by the leadership of the party. Don't be staying only in Kampala. You must go to the districts and interact with them. And you must have qualified employees. The political party is an organization and you need people to work with. So they must show quality, high level of professionalism and discipline in the people you employ to do the party work. And they must have knowledge management and periodic recognition of excellent performance. That is, you give awards to people in the party who have performed so well. You give awards to them and recognize their excellent performance. You must lay out a well-working procedure, or what we call SOP, standard working procedure, and you must use technological innovation. There must also be financial sustenance. Otherwise, the parties and the youth wings will collapse. So what are the rules and the laws in the country governing financial mobility for political parties? You must keep yourself abreast with that. And there's another major one, that's volunteerism. The spirit of volunteerism must be well kept alive in center-right youth. In Ghana, we are making use of the voluntary associations in our current campaign. So volunteerism is equally important. And then physical presence. Let the country, across the country, let them feel the presence of the party. Logos must be on billboards, etc. Must be across the length and breadth of the country. So center-right political parties must have an overarching presence throughout the continent and globally at large. Through policies and strategies, center-right parties are rooted very firmly through the everyday experiences of the ordinary citizen. No other political party of an alternative ideological positioning in Africa has achieved the depth of positive influence the center-right parties and government has been able to achieve. As a matter of principle, we adhere to rule of law, pro-enterprise, pro-freedom, compassionate as support for the vulnerable. It is no surprise that center-right parties continue to dominate the political space of their various countries. We stand tall. Center-right parties are built firmly on values and principles and policies we have developed over the years and have consistently been tolerant of divergent views, minority rights, support efforts to uplift women, youth, and people with disabilities participation in all political activities and government business. In short, we are an all-inclusive political parties. The democratic culture, discipline, technological innovation that exists in center-right political parties is the envy of many political parties on the continent and globally. It is therefore incumbent on all within the fraternity of the center-right politics, including WIDUA, to protect the gains achieved over the past decade, and mostly especially to encourage young politicians to keep the mantle of active participation and leadership. I therefore urge all WIDUA members to embrace these principles, values, and ideologies of center-right in pursuit of your political goal in your various countries. Do not falter. Perseverance and hard work at all times should be your guiding principles. You must work hard. We should be proud of ourselves. And I thank you for listening to me.
From our audience, I believe that was a really fruitful presentation. If some of you came into the space and perhaps you are new,
I'm really so proud and happy whenever I listen to your presentation. In other words, every presentation I get something I learn. I'm just learning today that actually we have some other partners who are the center-right political parties in Africa, like now in Senegal and Botswana. So I think we need to utilize them. But the question is, you have talked about that center-right ideology, we favor capitalism. But again, you disagree with forceful distribution. Forceful distribution of, was it democracy? Wealth, yes. So I just want actually more clarity about that. What do you mean by that? If you favor capitalism, then you strongly disagree with the forceful distribution of the wealth. Thank you so much.
Mulato from UNITA Party in Angola. And I have two questions. First, how can we balance the youth needs of urgency with our values and principles, since we are pro-dialogue, pro-fruitful engagement, and sometimes the youth do not understand this. So how can we balance it? And second, as a party in power, I would like to know from you what are the common critiques from the population to the center-right government. Thank you.
I am Edgar Chwalangira from the Malawi Congress Party. It has indeed been a very good presentation and quite eye-opening. I will have my comments later, but I just want to start with a question. In your presentation, I will get that we have more other centralized political parties on the continent, as stated by my president here. So my question was that, as DOA, or indeed in your capacity as the vice chair of ITU, what are you doing to bring on board these political parties from these other countries so that we should have a stronger force on the continent? And my comment is that indeed centralized political ideology is very powerful, and if we're organized, we can achieve more on our ground continent. I have a very good example of my country, where we have the Malawi Congress Party in government now, based on the campaign on centralized political ideologies. Our president, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, campaigned on 5 pillars: servant leadership, uniting Malawi, which was a polarized nation at that time, prospering together in a free market economy, that is, ending corruption and rule of law. So having crisscrossed the country, reaching these 5 points, we want government in 2020, and we are sure that we shall retain government in 2024. So I just want to give an example of Malawi, where if we were organized, we can indeed rule the continent using our centralized political ideologies. In the same vein, I should take this opportunity to wish you, the NPP, all the best in your election this year. I'm sure you shall break the 8-year jinx and continue ruling the good people.
Critical question to you, sir. With the current movement which are going on in our country, Kenya, or let me start. My name is Teddy from Kano. So with the current movement going on in our country, Kenya, it's pretty clear the young generation is currently moving away from political parties. They are moving away from the traditional method, and what they are saying is political parties are meant to retain the status quo. So if today we are in power, let's say as party A, and tomorrow another party comes into power, maybe not a center-right party, they will still retain the same status quo. So how do we deal with this issue, especially political parties, both center-right, conservative political parties, to accommodate these young people who have a new way of doing things? They are saying we are not going to join a political party, but for us to be part of leadership, we are going to take it head on. If it's corruption, we are going to tackle corruption head on. If it's about churches aiding and abetting corruption, we are going to the pulpits and talking to the pastors and the congregants about it. So it's a new movement. It has started in our country, and I'm sure this thing will, roll over to other African countries. So how can we leverage ourselves, especially the young people who are in political parties, so that we are not cast flat-footed especially by the young generation, the millennials and the Gen Zs? Thank you.
May remind you, be very short. I want to check, as we are part of the GNU in South Africa, so our co-partners ANC, DA, were apart from them, our ideologies. Us as the center rights, we believe in the free market economy, and they believe in something else. I want to check what would be your advice on such issues of different ideologies as we are working together. Thank you.
Gloire Macmenou, pour la présentation. Je pense que nous devons tirer chapeau à la fondation. Et moi, j'ai déjà participé à e-election et d'autres activités de la fondation où on nous a donné des cours sur les idéaux. Et ma question va se tourner principalement autour des régimes qui sont dictatoriaux, mais qui ne sont pas forcément militaires. C'est-à-dire, il y a les civils au pouvoir, mais qui instrumentalisent la justice, qui met les militaires à disposition pour pouvoir exploiter la population, pour pouvoir exercer une force de dictature sur la population. Qu'est-ce que le centre droit dit par rapport à ça? Parce que je pense que tous les enquêtes qui ont été donnés concernent les États où il y a des coups d'État militaires avérés, mais il y a des coups d'État constitutionnels ou autres qui se déroulent partout dans le monde, beaucoup plus en Afrique, mais qui ne sont pas perpétrés par des militaires. C'est-à-dire des civils qui changent les constitutions à leur gré pour pouvoir se maintenir au pouvoir et qui instrumentalisent la justice et la police nationale pour pouvoir arriver à leur fin. Je pense qu'il y a lieu d'y penser également. Merci.
My name is Patrick Sever. I'm from Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. My political party is PDCI RDA. Okay. My question, I got two questions, and the first one goes on this way. So, how can young men or young people avoid the dictatorship manipulation in some African countries? I take the case of my country, Ivory Coast. There, we can notice this kind of practice. Okay, young men are more and more manipulated by the dictatorship. Okay, so what are some means that the central right can set up for young men in order to avoid this kind of practice in some African countries? And the second one is about protection. Okay. In our country, for example, nobody is allowed to protest against something that is going wrong in our country. It's not allowed there. So what the civil rights ideology can suggest to people, or what we can do in order to change this kind of ruling in our country? Thank you.
Derecha de Guinea Ecuatorial, y le he escuchado hablar sobre cómo podría la ideología de centro-derecha dar ventajas en cuanto al Estado de Derecho en África. Mi cuestión es la siguiente. Como el tema de reflexión de esta conferencia es el Estado de Derecho en África, me gustaría saber, la ideología de centro-derecha, ¿en qué se difiere con los otros espectros políticos para poder consolidar la democracia en África? Muchas gracias.
Let's look at the first question, which sought to find out what I said about forcible distribution of wealth. I think everyone from a country where the military has seized power would agree with me that they rule by decrees, and they confiscate people's properties. It has happened even in Uganda here. We are standing during the era of General Idi Amin, where Asian businessmen, their properties were seized and they were driven out of the country. It happened under military government of Idi Amin in in Uganda here. It has happened in my own country, Ghana, where the military took over power and seized people's properties. But we are saying we believe in the rule of law. So if even an enterprise or a businessman has faulted, take him through the legal process and let the courts find the person guilty. You cannot sit there as a military man and pronounce judgment when the person is not given the ability to defend himself through the courts. That is not what center right stands for. That is not what center. So when I said that they forcibly distribute wealth, that's what I mean. But when we say capitalism, it is people's own ideas, entrepreneurship, that they have created businesses which is satisfying the needs of some parts of the society. And then they are working and making profit. So if they have done anything illegal, take them through the courts and let them pronounce them guilty and give them a fine or confiscate the property as the case may be. But don't allow the military to forcibly take people's properties or enterprises and make themselves as kings, the era of kings who, when they say anything, nobody is able to challenge. That's what I mean. And UNITA, Angola, the youth needs some form of agency for and we are talking about dialogue. How can we balance? I think that in doing this, history must guide us. In Ghana, we have gone through a lot of military coup d'etat. But at the end of the day, we have realized that when the soldiers come, they are not performing any better. Things rather get worse. So nobody in Ghana is in favor of military coup, because we've gone through it and it didn't end anywhere. Rather, they become corrupt more than the civilians. Okay, so we are saying, if you are a soldier and think you can rule, put your military clothes in somewhere and come and join or form your own political party, and let's compete. That's how it is. Don't use the barrel of the gun to threaten people and win and take power and use decrees to rule, as is happening in Guinea, Burkina Faso. I think you heard the examples I gave. The examples I gave. It's not moving. It's not moving. Okay, it's not moving. The media regulators to prison because they came out with a junta in a bribery scandal. And in Mali, they have jailed 10 opponents of the ruling military junta, including leading politicians, for demanding a return to civilian rule. Is this the kind of governance we want when the military take over? Is this the type of governance we center-right are saying we abhor these kind of rules by military juntas? So that is what I mean when I say we as center-right are not for, and that we are for dialogue. Because ultimately, in I think Mali, either Mali or Guinea, the military promised that this year they will hand over power to civilians. Then they reneged on that promise and said another 5 years. What are they doing for another 5 years? And when people, including leading opposition politicians, demand a return to civilian rule, then you put them in jail. What? In modern society, is that how to run a country? So the center-right abhors. We condemn these kind of actions. That's what we mean. So, UNITA, the youth may need agency, but that is not the solution. I can tell you, it has happened in many countries. And if you say that the bandwagon is going to go, somebody asked that question, that is going to go to other African countries, I beg to differ. Because it started from Tunisia and it went to Egypt, where Mubarak was overthrown. So what has happened to Tunisia and Egypt now as we speak? What has happened to Ghana? When in 1981, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings killed 3 of our living heads of state. What has happened? What change did the military make? Ultimately, we've come to the rule of law. We've come to multi-party democracy, which we have survived for 32 years. And people now believe that we are better off than under the military regime. So there may be the haste, but you will live to regret, like we regretted. Nigeria recently, if you remember, had the youth clamoring for SARS. The police, they said the police were harassing the youth. And in a democratic setting, they don't want that. They also went on demonstration, though they couldn't succeed at the levels of Kenya. Nevertheless, it brings to notice certain demands and changes, that an accountability, which is something center-right want. We want governments to be accountable. You don't allow your citizens to be harassed by the police, especially the youth. So changes were effected, but through the parliamentary and the House of Representative levels. There are rules and laws are enacted to stop the police from harassing the youth of the country. That is what we call the rule of law, not the rule of the gun. So instantly people will jubilate, but I can tell you that it won't go beyond 4 years or 5 years. They will regret. If they had gone through forcibly into the legislature to effect laws against certain things going on in the country and make governments accountable. My president used to say that he does not believe in people accusing people in government or private sector as corrupt. You know, that's what is going on. And that he always believes that there must be investigation and the people given opportunity in court. There must be, because it has happened. Many people are wrongly accused. When they go to court, the court set them free. Some of them too, the court jailed them. So let them go through the proper procedure. In any democratic state, that's what should happen. You don't just listen to your opponent saying you are corrupt. Then we go and take you from your home and send you to prison. How? It could be out of envy, jealousy, or whatever. But let him face the proper court processes, the judiciary, and he'll be given the opportunity to answer the charges preferred against him. That is the spirit of rule of law. So Edgar, when you say stronger forces on the continent and what the IDU is doing, I think in my presentation I mentioned that at the IDU level, where I sit as vice president, at every annual meeting, countries within the International Democratic Union, which is the center-right parties, have issued condemnations. We have even visited countries to ascertain how they are treating opposition parties, center-right parties. And I won't be far if there's any Chadema representative here, he will side with what I'm saying. We have issued statement upon statement in favor of Chadema and how the government is treating them. We have sent these statements to various embassies in Tanzania, and we have sent them into the media houses around the globe. So when Tanzania governments travel outside to, let's say, United Nations or African Union or somewhere, they are asked those questions, and they are very much embarrassed. So when they come home, they have to do the right thing. So we are not sitting aloof. Once the complaints get to us, we investigate and take it up with appropriate channels. And I strongly agree with Malawi on the 5 pillars or the 5 points which won them the presidency. And I am happy, as I said, that as Center Right, we also assist our colleagues. I was in Malawi to do some training. I was on Zoom with Liberia on how they should protect the vote. So internally, we assist each other with what we have gone through and the lessons that we have learned. We pass it on to other countries to be on guard. So that is the essence of coming together of center-right parties in Africa and sharing ideas. We do that quite often. So thank you, MCP, for being with MPP to break the 8. Thank you, Edgar. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Makmani. If I may interject.
Ideally. The first question was in respect of dictatorial regimes. As a matter of fact, I did not limit the presentation only to military regimes. I said dictatorial regimes are part of it. And when I spoke about the reintroduction of multi-party democracy after the fall of the Berlin Wall, there were a lot of dictatorial regimes in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Tanzania, and all of this. So dictatorial regimes have existed, and they are also equal to one-party state, military dictatorship, because they rule by decrees and by force. But we are saying that let the rule of law prevail. And that is what the center-right ideology is also about. That do not prove guilty to somebody without giving him an opportunity to defend himself in the courts of law. That's all what we are saying. So dictatorial regimes are there. Some may be using the police or the military to suppress civilians for their own gains. We speak against that. We of the center right, we speak against that. So when we come to forum or fora like this, or at the IDU level or ADUA level, when you are giving your country reports, you should let us know so that we will also take it on board. Because we exist to protect human rights, we exist to protect enterprise rights, so that people cannot seize people's property by force. So it's only at a forum like this, at the DUA level or at the IDU level, when countries are given time for their country reports, that we will manage to know and then investigate and then bring it to the attention of the global community. That's how it is now. So if there's anything in Cote d'Ivoire where young men and their civil rights are being abused, just let us know, and we will investigate and bring it out to the global community. Moses, Equatorial Guinea, you wanted to know human rights in Africa. I think the presentation churned out a lot of human rights abuses from Somalia to Sudan to Guinea to Mali to, I mean, a lot of examples were given. Equally, better democratic practices, as has been exhibited in Senegal, in Liberia, in Ghana, in South Africa, were also, these examples were given. And that's why I said that we have the good, we have the not too good, and we have the worst. It is our